Kia ora Aotearoa, welcome whānau to bombersblog, the War on News, your weekly sacred cow slaughtering assault on current affairs beamed live from the palatial Stratus news bunker buried deep beneath the heart of the Greyland Republic. And tonight's political media crimes against reason kill zone, National's economic cocktail is 2 parts smoke and mirrors, 1 part placebo, 3 parts Prozac and 15 parts total denial. Simon Power tells Sean Elias, get back to the kitchen and make me some eggs. Whinging Poms not being enthusiastic enough about their young men dying in Afghanistan. Plus this week's Wanko of the Week and the Barack Obama People's Hero Award. Leading the war on news this week, brothers and sisters. Hands up if you think BNZ's cartoon piggy bank piggies, whom BNZ advertises being looked after by BNZ staff at a holiday resort, will start to resemble those sauerkraut pigs SAFE protest against. Now BNZ has been pinged $645 million by the Inland Revenue Department for financially structuring transactions to generate tax benefits. When you or I financially structure transactions to generate tax benefits, it's called tax avoidance. When large multinational banks collectively keep $2.4 billion in tax out of the government coffers, it's called oops, honest mistake, see you in the appeal court. The only thing more deceptive than this mass tax avoidance by the big 4 Australian banks are gossip columnist profile photos. Talking of misrepresenting reality, the green shoots of the recovery were announced last week with the sort of enthusiasm reserved for staff on the Titanic trying to convince everyone that there are enough lifeboats to go around. The Reserve Bank governor, who told us before Christmas last year that the recession was almost over, told us again this week, 7 months later, that the recession is nearly over again. What do the phrases, don't worry, be happy, we don't know how lucky we are, and there is no depression in New Zealand have in common? They were all draft titles for National's economic statement last week that coincided with Alan Bollard's own happy, happy, joy, joy press release. Whānau, unfair critics say that these green shoots of recovery are really just the dried snot of recession, and that this government has no actual plan to deal with the global economic crisis created by the unregulated corporate greed of American banks who, flushed with cheap money from the developing world, proceeded to hand all that cash out to people who could never pay it back, and created weapons of financial mass destruction that saw them write up over $60 trillion in Enron-esque credit default swaps. And when you consider Obama has only put in $1 trillion to prop this economic house of cards up, you get some idea how much further the global economy has to go before it hits rock bottom. Responding to this criticism, our medicatedly optimistic Prime Minister John Key says, and I'm paraphrasing, "Nah bro, I'm building a cycle track, it's all good, look at me, I'm aspirational, I used to live in a state house, let's focus on the positive, OECD, productivity, competitiveness, look at this hand while the other hand is doing something you can't see." National are so convinced the bottom to the recession has been reached, they're running around like an inverse Chicken Little crying, "The ground is rushing up to meet us, the ground is rushing up to meet us." Who would have thunk that a property bubble propped up with a consumerism culture based on SUVs, plasma TVs and cosmetic surgery, all paid for on credit cards, wouldn't be sustainable? If the system of global capitalism is broken and our individualised neuroses marketed back to us to make us buy more pointless crap that destroys our soul and planet, why should we have to acknowledge it? Whānau, we need to follow National's example and collectively stick our heads in the sand and pretend it's all going to go away. Operation Ostrich will be quickly followed by Operation Zombie Whore when Roger Douglas fills the intellectual vacuum caused by John Key's lack of ideology by privatising the entire continental shelf of New Zealand as a response to the free market on pee. Brothers and sisters, I say the £500 roid rage merchant banker screaming for another stimulus hit in the middle of the room should be ignored. If we start asking questions about the fundamental economic platforms that have allowed us to remain delusional for so very, very long, we might have to stop pretending things will be hunky-dory and actually do some thinking. And I say no to that. That's what we pay politicians for, to not do our thinking for us. What are we paying our taxes for if not to be sweetly lied to? Whānau, we have to move on. As generous as a Phillip Field working bee, the Minister of Dog Whistle, Simon Power, exploded with rage last week when Chief Justice Shana Elias had the temerity to point out that the Law and Order Emperor didn't have bright orange chain-ganged overalls on. Brothers and sisters, I'm sick to death of these activist judges going on and on and on about justice, human rights, and pointing out that National's populist lynch mob, tough on crime, talkback generated punitive knee-jerk harsher sentences crap won't work. I'm sick of hearing the truth from this woman. Can't she give poor Simon Power a break? Simon has done more than any other National MP to demonise prisons by claiming they are 3-star adult Disneylands with flat-screen TVs, underfloor heating and landscaping budgets to rival the great palaces of Europe. He has wound New Zealand up so much by pretending rapists and murderers are downloading the latest gangster rap song on their taxpayer-funded iPods while text flirting with your daughter, that he has to now satisfy that raw meat fury with a law and order policy that starts making Libya look progressive. We are second only to America in locking our people up in a vast prison nation that Simon wants to privatise. And that's not good enough, people. We could be number one if we try really, really hard. Seeing as the recidivist levels are so high because we don't bother doing any rehabilitation whatsoever, let's just take all the prisoners' semen, mix it with the female prisoners' eggs, and lock up the fetuses. For at-risk teenagers, we'll send them to Felix Donnelly College, a special state school that takes youth justice kids, but was recently audited having slum-like filthy buildings that have no heating, no hot water, and no smoke alarms. SIF's tried sweeping the cockroach conditions under the carpet by describing Felix Donnelly College recently as, get this, you'll love it, cozy and charming. At least we're preparing them for a life in prison, eh, folks? Let's not have rational debate interrupt the screens of public executions. National's solution to prison overcrowding is the same as their solution to 10% unemployment. More shipping container cells. Cue the voice of reason, the Right Reverend Garth McVicker from the Sensible Sentencing Lynch Mob. Garth righteously pointed out that this lippy, man-hating, feminazi judge was kicking the victims in the guts by pointing out that the very policies he's been advocating are counterproductive, irrational, and in fact putting into place the building blocks of an empire of suffering that will septically weep back into society to ironically poison us all with her own sense of misplaced vengeance. Shana Elias, get back in the kitchen, make us some eggs, and stop pointing out that anger has warped justice and that reasoned debate has been shut down by politicians playing to the baying mob of hate. We are too busy trying to ignore how bad the economy is. We can't turn another blind eye to law and order as well. One delusional national lie at a time, thanks, Chief Justice. Stick to pointing out the seabed and foreshore legislation was theft and that Ahmed Zawi was never a terrorist and should never have been in prison in the first place, thanks. Fine now, we've got to move on.